Hey guys, welcome to the pre-algebra recap video talking about area of rectangles and triangles. So one of the cool things this program lets me do is import some shapes, not all. Let's say the area or the width of this rectangle was 5.2 centimeters. The length was 9.7 centimeters. And I said, hey, what's the area? Well, what would we do to find that? Well, I mean, you're probably saying, let's do length times width. And you'd be right. So we'd be taking 5.2 centimeters times 9.7 centimeters. Now, before we finish, I'm going to kind of sidetrack for a sec, but it's going to make sense why in a minute. You know, if I said, what is 2 times 2? You'd say 4, right? Couldn't we also say it's 2 squared? If I said, what's x times x? Couldn't we say that's x squared? Yeah. So anything times itself is that thing squared, right? So what we know about area is when we measure area, it's actually in units squared. So here's one way we can see that. We're taking 5.2 centimeters times 9.7 centimeters. Now this is the long way of doing this. I don't normally do this, but to explain one way to help you remember that you're going to get centimeters squared, I'm going to show you this. 5.2 centimeters times 9.7 centimeters. What I can actually do is rewrite that as 5.2 times 9.7 times centimeters. Okay, so I've used what's called the commutative property of multiplication to move some things around. Notice I still have a 5.2. I still have a 9.7, I still have a centimeters, and I still have another centimeters. Okay, so remember up here we said 2 times 2 is 2 squared. X times x is x squared. Centimeters times centimeters, centimeters squared. And then all I have left to do is do the 5.2 times 9.7. And you guys know how to do multiplying decimals, so I'm not going to bore you with those details. I need 2 decimal places though right there. So my answer is 50.44, but remember centimeters squared. Now, do I draw this all out like that every time? No. Okay. I just know if I'm taking centimeters times centimeters, I'm going to get centimeters squared. So that's just something good to remember, but in case you really want to know like the nitty-gritty details behind it, here's why. And I forgot, we'll call this thing item number 1, and then we'll move down here to item number 2. Okay, so now I've given you a rectangle, and this rectangle actually has an area of 76.5 inches squared. And the length is 17, but what we don't know is the width, and we want to find that. So how do we do that? Well, we know that area of a rectangle, okay, can be found by taking length times the width, right? So we can do like a simple equation solving, which we'll get more into later, but we could also think of like, well, 17 times what gets me 76.5 inches squared? Or if I take 76.5 inches squared and divide that by 17 inches, I should get my answer. Now here's one really cool thing. Okay, so we said x times x is the same as, that's x times x squared, right? So that'd be like saying x squared is the same as x times x, okay? So I want you to look at this inches squared. Inches squared is really like saying inches times inches. So I'm going to rewrite this problem, or this expression, as 76.5 inches times inches over, and then we had 17 inches here. Now why did I do that? I did it because this. I'm going to cancel those units of inches on top, cancel one of them on top, and cancel one of them on bottom. So my answer is going to be inches, just plain inches, which makes sense, right? Because I'm looking for a width. A width is not measured in inches squared or centimeters squared or feet squared. It's just plain inches, plain centimeters, plain feet. So that begs the question though, what is 76.5 divided by 17? Well, 17 goes into 76, let's see, 4 times. That would give me 68. Subtract there. And let's see, 6, that'd become 1. 16 minus 8 is 8. Bring down that 5. Oh, we need to move our decimal from here up there. So our answer is going to be 4 point something. And actually, did you know that 17 times 5 equals 85? So we have a remainder of 0, and there's our answer. But what is the units? Well, 76.5 divided by 7 is 4.5, but we still have this inches. So I'll write inches in right there. So 4.5 inches, and that would be that dimension right there. It would also be that right there. Inches. Inches. All right, so let's talk about area of a triangle. Let's look at this triangle right here. Okay. Now, the cool thing about triangle, any triangle, is it is actually half of a rectangle, always. Okay, oh, that was a terrible, terrible rectangle. Let's try that one more time. A little better, maybe clean it up. Not my best work, not my worst. Anyway, so this green triangle right here is, well, half the area of the rectangle, which is how we get the formula that area of a triangle equals base times height divided by 2. Okay. Now, how do we get that? Well, area of a square we said is length times width, or area of a rectangle. I'm sorry, area of a rectangle. Well, did you know that length and width are really just like saying base and height, just in a different way? So anyway, so let's say this green triangle right here has a length of 10 feet, a height of 6 feet, and I want to know, hey, what's the area of that triangle? Well, base would be 10 times height, 6, divide that all by 2. Order of operations says I need to do what's on top first. Okay, so 10 times 6 is 60, divide that by 2. Well, 60 divided by 2 is 30. But now what are we talking about? Well, we're taking feet times feet, so we're getting feet squared. That triangle is 30 feet squared. Now, what is the area of the rectangle? Well, you could think of it as, well, just 6 times 10, length times width, or base times height, which is 60. Or you could think of the area of this triangle, this green triangle here, but double it. That would give you 60 as well. And yeah, I should have really done all this in green because all this calculation was just for this green triangle. But anyway, you get the point. All right, so let's look at this triangle here. Let's find the area. So, area of a triangle, base times height divided by 2, right? Well, that is correct, but what height is the question, okay? So I've given you a slant height, but I actually haven't given you the height of this triangle, okay? So the question is, what actually is the height of this triangle? Well, it's not 14, okay? So when we're finding base times height, and then we divide that by 2, all right, I mean the height that is perpendicular to the base. So here's our base. So I need a height that is perpendicular. Okay, so is it going to be this right there? No, I'd actually have to give you that, okay? A little right angle and say, well, that's, it's 9 centimeters there, okay? So now, if I give you this, now you have enough information to calculate the area of that triangle, okay? And the area of that triangle would be the base, which is 6, times the height, which was 9, and then we divide all that by 2. Okay, so that means 6 times 9, 54. Divide all that by 2. And then, well, 54 divided by 2 is like 25, tack on 2, so 27. But what are we talking about? We're talking about centimeters squared, okay, because we're talking about area. Okay, so the area of this triangle right here is 27 centimeters squared, okay? Now, we said that triangles are half of rectangles, right? So let me redraw this real quick. All right, so that's close. So it would be super, super tempting to say that if I'm going to draw the rectangle that is twice of this triangle, just to go like this, right? Oh, there we go. There's a rectangle that is twice the area of this blue triangle. But let's look at that picture. Okay, does this blue triangle really look like just half of this greater orange rectangle? Not to me, it doesn't. It looks like way less, right? So here's what we need to do. If you really want to conceptualize, especially with obtuse triangles, it's a little more difficult, how this triangle is actually half a rectangle, what you need to think of is, you know what, that rectangle right there, or this triangle, I'm going to make that the base of our rectangle. And so the rectangle that is actually twice the area of this blue triangle would look like this. Okay. So in our case, let's pretend that this blue triangle is identical to this one we figured out up here. So the area of this blue triangle is 27 centimeters squared, which came from right there. So if that's 27 centimeters squared, then what's the area of the rectangle? Well, it'd be that 27 centimeters squared times 2, which would bring us back to the 54 centimeters squared. And I'll put a little rectangle there. Area of the rectangle. Alright guys, so that's area of rectangles and triangles. Hope you liked the video. We got some triangles and rectangles in there. Yeah, everything we covered. So, I look forward to seeing you in class.